Welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. It is now 9:08 p.m. in darkest Central Europe. Rain, thunderstorm, all indicating that you should have said goodbye to summer long ago and got yourself in the frame of mind of accepting fall, winter, and all the misery therein. And so it is indeed quite miserable here. Now, on that note, let me welcome everybody who has joined us. I really appreciate you being here. And what can I say? Another day, and it's another day of no interview for Kamala Harris. And Kamala is apparently thinking, well, maybe I might do an interview before the end of the month, but I don't know. Maybe not. And what's interesting is Essie Delendum says the gaggle lives. Thank you very much. That's very good to know. Let's hope we go on living. And so the media have decided to act as public relations agents for Kamala Harris. In other words, saying that what they're saying is that, well, look, this is working for her, not doing any interviews, being cocooned, just simply surrounded by her coterie. It's working. Why should she give us an interview? And you think, well, that's very odd, because a journalist, his job should be, well, I don't know. I mean, this is she's aspiring to be president of the United States. Maybe she should sit down and tell us, like when Edward Kennedy tried to explain to, says no audio. Is that right? There's no audio. Somebody said there's no audio. I got the audio. Is this a universal problem, that there's no audio? Can other people hear me? Because Donna Gaffney says there's no audio. Where's there no audio? Can you hear me? Anyone hear me? I mean, Essie says, oh yes, court is in session. Yeah, court is in session, and I'm a audio. Okay, great. All right, that's a relief. So it's, I hear you. Thank you so much, Brown. And Linz, good to hear from you, from even down in New Zealand. And Hugh Keenan, audio fine. That's excellent. And Donna Gaffney also says, sorry, audio is okay. Good. Anyway, that's sorted out. So it's very, very interesting that the media have decided, well, it's working for Kamala. Why should she give us interviews? Yeah. Don't give us any interviews. Don't sit down with us. Just do whatever you're doing, because it's working. And it's very strange, because you would have thought that that's the job of a journalist. I mean, why are you picking up a paycheck? Other than, well, maybe I should ask a person who is aspiring to be president of the United States. Maybe I should ask her why she wants to be president. Remember when Roger Mudd in 1979 asked Senator Edward Kennedy, why do you want to be president? And Kennedy was unable to give an answer. It was a simple question, and he couldn't give an answer. And so again, this is kind of thing a journalist should do. You ask somebody who's running for president, why do you want to be president? What do you intend to do as president? And these journalists are not really interested in that, because they just simply want to get Kamala over the finish line. That's all that matters. Just get her there, beat Trump, and then everything will be fine. And then once she's in the Oval Office, then they can do their thumb-sucking articles. Well, maybe we should have looked a little deeper into Kamala. Esse Delindum says, Roger Mudd, interesting reference. Yeah, it is interesting. I liked him, and he was a kind of a standby for. And then Hugh Keenan says it worked for Biden in 2020. Yeah, it did work for Biden in 2020, and it may work for Kamala. I don't know. It all depends on how happy the journalists will be, essentially, to be little more than PR agents for Kamala. As I've said before, I mean, these are in-kind contributions to the Democratic Party. Since the media are doing in-kind contributions, I think federal election laws should apply to them. There has to be a determination of the monetary value of these in-kind contributions. Therefore, we have to find out whether they exceed campaign spending limits. I mean, these are contributions. These are not, this isn't journalism. This is campaigning. Now, the question is, will this work? I mean, and I can't really give an answer to that. So there's this guy at Rasmussen Reports, this Mark Mitchell, who thinks that these polls that they're running are fake and phony and bogus, because they're not really running any new polls. So these polls that keep coming out and saying, "Oh, Kamala is now surging. Kamala is ahead of Trump," and so on. He's saying, well, that was done back in in the few days after Kamala was anointed as Biden's successor. So she received a bump from that. And according to Mitchell, he says there's been really no new polling since then. The only new polling since then has been done by him at Rasmussen. And according to him, Trump is still ahead, and Trump is as far ahead of Harris as he was of Biden. So there's been no real change from Biden to Harris. And then what the media are doing is essentially pushing a particular story, and then everybody repeats it. And the story is, of course, Kamala is surging, waves of enthusiasm, enormous excitement in the country. Now, you know that this is a crock for a very obvious reason. I mean, it can't be this woman who's now almost 60 years old. It cannot be that 2 months ago she was regarded as a stupid, unlikable, useless person, least likely to win an election for the Democrats, far behind Whitmer or Newsom or any of the other kind of would-be aspirants to Democratic Party leadership. She was regarded as far behind them, because she was just very unlikable. She couldn't string two sentences together. She couldn't speak really without reading from a teleprompter. She had that awful, annoying laugh. And basically, she had no accomplishments as vice president. So she wasn't taken seriously. So how do we suddenly get from that, which was the consensus among the media, how do we get from that to this Queen Kamala narrative and these ridiculous magazine covers like the one on Time magazine or New York magazine, well, something is being worked on us. So they're saying, oh, well, there's a lot of excitement about Kamala. Well, how does that come about? How can you have excitement about Kamala when she hasn't yet presented any kind of a program? She doesn't have any policies. She hasn't delivered one notable speech. So how can there be excitement? I mean, she hasn't done anything to merit excitement. I mean, at least when they said, oh, Obama, there was excitement. Well, first of all, Obama came out of nowhere. And so nobody had known about him. Kamala Harris has been around for many years, so she's not a neophyte. But at least Obama had delivered these absolutely vacuous, ridiculous speeches, as, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Well, it has to be one of the most pointless, idiotic things anyone has ever said. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And of course, yes, we can. That was his great slogan. Yes, we can. And hope and change. Hope and change. Anyway, that was Obama. And they said, well, oh, everyone's very excited. But of course, they weren't really excited about Obama. They were excited about the idea of voting for a black man to be president. People just fell in love with the idea that, well, once we can have a black man as a president, then, all America's racial problems will just go away. All the painful history will disappear. And essentially, Obama will kind of bless everybody and say, that's it. Everything, all's forgiven and forgotten. We're now going to move into a better future. Now, Obama could have done that, but he didn't do it. And he never had any interest in doing it. I think it's just white people wanted to believe that that's what Obama wanted to do, and that's what Obama presidency would be about. And of course, it wasn't. And so it was a completely failed presidency in a very deeper sense, not just in terms of foreign policy, but domestically. He unquestionably made race relations much, much worse than they were before Obama, and that was deliberate policy on his part. But back in 2008, there was just the excitement about the idea of Obama. It's just the very existence of Obama excited people. Now, nobody's excited about the existence of Kamala. It is an impossibility. That it is, it's a scientific impossibility. There is no human being alive who's excited about Kamala. So this is all just simply made up, and so it's so now I think these polls are a fraud, and I go along with Mark Mitchell. I mean, I'm not a pollster, but his comments about how the polls are being conducted, that they're oversampling Democrats, that they're but above all, his point is that they're not new. These are polls that were done in the immediate aftermath of her being inserted as the Democratic Party nominee. And there was that enthusiasm just because Biden was gone and there was somebody else there. But he's saying that since then, Trump has restored the lead that he had, and that his lead over Harris is much the same as his lead over Biden. And keep in mind, I mean, when Biden was dumped by the Democratic leaders, it was still a very close race. I mean, there were, there may have been panicking, all those Pelosi's and others, but it was a close race. I mean, everybody could see, if you say, okay, it's going to be close. Biden had Trump had a narrow lead over Biden. And I think he probably still has a narrow lead over Harris. I don't believe this nonsense that Harris has taken a lead or anything like that. It just can't be like that. You cannot have that. You cannot have somebody in the lead who hasn't actually said anything. I mean, it's just, I mean, she's, catapulted into that position of the titular leader of the Democratic Party. Oh, I want to be president. Now let me think. What are my policies going to be? What should I say? So it can't be that. Now, to go back to the issue of, can this work for her? I don't know. The media are such scum. They're so disgusting and low life that it's possible that they'll be happy to go along with this. I mean, there obviously will be things like, Politico and all those supposed alternative venues like the Daily Beast and the rest, Newsweek, and they'll just go on singing the glories of Harris. But you have to wonder whether the more upmarket of the mainstream, like the New York Times, would they go along with this? Would they play in this charade and not insist that Harris sit down for a proper interview? I don't know. We'll just have to see. I mean, I'm naturally a pessimist, and I probably think, it's probably going to work for her. But what I love is that I see that already we're getting the stories of the Harris is a strong woman, like Hillary Clinton is a strong woman. She's a strong woman, she's strong women. Now, the definition of a strong woman is one that A, cannot possibly sit down for an interview, B, cannot hold a press conference, C, is always the subject of sexism, D, is a victim, E, is never taken seriously because she's a woman, and then F, Trump is bullying her. So she's so strong that everything is she's being bullied all the time. So there's an article, in this rag Politico about how Trump, who declared that she was a beautiful woman the other day, he's doing his typical sexist thing of undermining women. He's been doing this misogyny all his life. Hey, I thought you were a strong woman. I mean, why you can't take that? I mean, all the things that Trump gets called, I mean, it's all he puts up with it. But you say anything, even saying, I think she's a beautiful woman, that is also, it's a horrific insult, and the purest expression of misogyny. And but she's a strong woman. Like Hillary you can't get stronger than Hillary, even though she's always about to burst into tears because of sexism. Anyway, let me go to our locals page, where our locals contributors contribute. And let me go here. So Danaki, always good to see you. He says, Kedvesh George, is the fatal trap closed yet? Or will the brilliant Gerasimov patiently wait for the whole Ukro army to pour into Kursk and Belgorod before he finally springs it shut, completely annihilating NATO's stand? As for the Black Sea sub sunk of the last 4 remaining, don't worry. Esteemed expert Martyanov has already assured that it was just as obsolete as the Moskva cruiser. No biggie. It's all for the best. Xenon forever. Well, yeah, you have a way of putting things in a very very sharp and stark way. I couldn't put it better myself. It's clear that this attack on Kursk is a very big deal. And now there's the attack on Belgorod. And we are now talking about a very substantial evacuation of the civilian population. And so I was looking at the pictures of the civilians who are being evacuated, in particular from Belgorod, but also some of the civilians being evacuated from Kursk. Look at their faces. They are looking really, really pissed. They are very, very unhappy. And who wouldn't be? Because they're leaving their homes. They have no idea if or when they're ever going to come back. They don't know where they're going. And they're ultimately have to be asking, where the hell is this war going? And this is really the issue, which is that, again, these people you mentioned, I said, well, it's already all over. I don't know how long ago it was said to be all over. But then, and then again, we're reading about how Russia continues to make progress in Donetsk. Well, I mean, maybe they're capturing a couple of villages. How many villages has Ukraine captured now in Kursk? And then you have to think, well, what is going to happen? I mean, if Ukraine is already setting up administrative regions there. Now, you could say, well, Russia will drive them out. Maybe so. Russia has the capability to drive them out, but it hasn't done it yet. And while we're saying, yeah, they're making progress in Donetsk, but they're leaving their own citizens to be evacuated from their homes. I mean, these are people, peacefully living in Belgorod. They were peacefully living in Kursk, and now they're being evacuated. And again, as I say, we have no idea when or if they're ever going to come back. So it is a big deal, and it's a very serious situation. So Russia has decided that, well, we're not going to deal with this Kursk problem at the moment. We don't know exactly why that is. Everyone claims that they know why Russia has made that decision. Oh, well, of course, because Russia wants to focus on Donetsk. Maybe. But I thought Russia had this huge military force, plenty for Donetsk, and they can also address the problem at home. Well, does that force exist? It's a question we've asked really from the beginning. Where is the Russian army? I mean, just where is it? I mean, we just haven't seen much of it. So this thing, which is now, it's now, what is it, 10 days, this occupation, it's continuing. More seriously, leave aside, what Ukraine is trying to do, because no one's exactly knows what Ukraine's objectives are, but we do know that this has had a negative impact on Russia. Leave aside again of the evacuations. Hundreds of thousands of Russian civilians are being evacuated from their homes. But the problem is that it is causing demoralization, because again, on February the 24th, 2022, Russia was believed to be the second strongest military in the world. And I mean, basically, that this is going to be a mop-up operation. Ukraine isn't going to be able to mount any kind of a defense. Russia is going to wrap this up. And the problem is that Russia is as far from wrapping it up as it has ever been. Now, again, the people that you mentioned there, Dinaki, they all say, yeah, but Russia's going to do it. It'll be done. Okay. then you have to then answer, well, when's that going to happen? Nothing is done until it's done. I mean, that's it. When you win a war is when you've actually won the war, when you've actually defeated your opponent and pushed him out, and then you've achieved your military accomplishment. They're not, they're not accomplished in a kind of theoretical kind of iCloud version, whereby where Russia has all these forces at its disposal, and then of course Russia will win, and therefore you jump to the next stage, which is that Russia has already won. And that really is the big problem here, that this is getting very, very tricky. And we have to go back to the master himself, Clausewitz. What was it Clausewitz said? He said, as long as the war is going on, it is completely characterized. A war is characterized by unpredictability. That was it. That was his fundamental thesis. Unpredictability. You have no idea how it's going to go. I mean, until you've actually, won the war, achieved your military objectives. But the longer it goes on, the more uncertainty is introduced. And the most serious consequence for Russia is that no one is afraid of Russia anymore. That's a very dangerous situation for Russia. That's a perilous situation, that no one is afraid of it, which means that other countries, other powers are going to take more and more risks against Russia because they just don't think there's anything to be afraid of. And this is what the Ukrainians keep saying. They keep saying to the Americans, we told you there's nothing to be afraid of. And the Americans are more or less getting persuaded. Back in February 2022, the Americans were thinking, well, we don't want to mess with them. This is Russia. This is the second most formidable military power in the world. And in a way, Russia has been lucky that they had Biden in the White House, because Biden is someone, who's of an older generation. He lived through the Cold War. And in the Cold War, the Americans respected the Soviet Union. You don't mess with them. These people are serious. It's a serious country, serious power, led by serious people. You don't mess with them. And I think Biden kind of imbibed some of that. And so I think he was reluctant initially to do anything too provocative. And sanctioning an invasion of Russia is something that he wouldn't have done in 2022. But now he's signed off on it, because now I think Biden has been persuaded, or whether or not Biden or whoever is around Biden have been persuaded, that Russia is just not anyone that we need to be afraid of. Again, that's a very dangerous situation, because I don't know if that is the case. But that's really the problem, that you've now done something that would have been thought unthinkable, just a few months ago. Invasion of Russia using American and German and British weaponry. This is an invasion orchestrated by NATO, planned by NATO, and effectively NATO is invading Russia using Ukraine as its army. So that's a dangerous situation to be in, and the evidence seems to be that Ukraine is continuing to replenish its forces. So the minimum that at least we would have hoped would have been achieved by now, which is essentially to cut this Ukrainian occupying force off, that it can't be resupplied. Essentially, it's cutting them off from Sumy, from the border. That, as far as I can see, has not yet been accomplished. So all these countries are looking around, India, China, and they're gonna start making calculations about Russia. You know, again, they were under the impression, as we all were, that Russia is a very serious military force. I mean, this is, I mean, it's it's very painful talking like this, but at the moment, it's just not looking good. Now, maybe in a week's time we'll say, well, thank God this crisis has been averted. But at the moment, it hasn't been. Anyway, Denoki goes on. And did you hear Escobar's latest, also propagated by Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor? It seems that any minute now, Odessa will hold a referendum to join the Russian Federation. Complete victory is near, comrades, and then on to Tiraspol, Kiev, and Lvov. Yes, I have heard that, the referendum. It's so ridiculous. There's no evidence for any of these, speculations. I mean, it's just complete nonsense, and it's all the product of wishful thinking. It's all this is what you would like to see happen, and therefore you assume it will happen. Now, there are people who I think believe this kind of stuff genuinely. But many of these people are grifters. They are grifters. They're making a lot of money putting out garbage that their listeners want to hear, and the listeners, unfortunately, are prepared to pay them. And and there's big money in there. And so a lot of these kind of military experts are putting out this absolute twaddle and acquiring a substantial following. And then they monetize it. I'm not saying that about some of those people. I mean, I'm pretty sure that McGregor. I'm not pretty sure. I don't know McGregor. I don't know what his deal is. But some of the others, absolutely no integrity at all. That this is a grift, and the whole cult of Russia is a grift. It's a way of making money. It's not providing a serious analysis, not providing any realistic picture, and it's monetizing a particular message. So anyway, we have. And then DJ says that's Queen Kamala, has a secret plan to make America great again. Yes, I think so. I think I saw that meme earlier today. The Kamala Harris, wearing that red red hat. Make America great. That's her latest program. Now that she's taken on Trump's idea of no taxes on tips and no tax on Social Security. The next one is, make America great again. Now, she'll do the tariffs soon. And of course, then she'll say, I want to close the border. We need to close the border. And of course, in a way, it's not that surprising. I mean, she's always been a chameleon. I mean, she's never really had any strong beliefs. I mean, it's not like, she was on the left, now she's moved to the center, or she was on the center, now she's moved to the left. She was never anything. She was always an opportunist. And so, this kind of grab anybody's ideas comes naturally to her. In this, she's very much like Hillary Clinton. And again, Hillary Clinton was all over the place in her career. And that's kind of the reason why she was overwhelmingly detested, because nobody really believed that she thought anything other than, what do I need to say in order to get to be president. That was all, the only thing that mattered to her. What do I need to say? What's the message today? Uh, and now, in her case, in Hillary's case, as in Harris's case, there is this fanatical, loyal following, who will just go to the ends of the earth, crawl over hot coal, for Hillary Clinton. And I think that's also true of Harris. Maybe not to the same extent, but Harris does fit the profile of a kind of the contemporary woman in America, and I think that she will get that vote. I mean, I think that there's no question there will be a huge gender gap in this election, and I think that same vote that was so supportive of Hillary, the single unmarried woman, all the way from teenage to middle age, will be absolutely on board for Kamala, because I think they will identify with her, and so I think because of that very strong following, she does have a built-in advantages that Biden didn't have. Biden really didn't have anyone who would crawl to the ends of the earth on his behalf. I think Kamala has that, but I think she's more detested than Biden ever was. I think Biden's strong suit was that nobody really had very strong feelings about him. I mean, nobody particularly liked him, but nobody particularly disliked him either. And that's, I think, different from Hillary, because I think that a lot of people adored her, but even more people just couldn't stand her, and I think that there's some of that about Kamala as well. Anyway, NGX, thank you very much. Absolutely, thank you for your generosity. It says, thank you, George and Peter, for all the wonderful work you do. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. That's really appreciate that. I learn so much from you every week. Thank you. And I truly appreciate what you do. Thank you so much. I don't get to catch the live stream too often, but as I'm here today, I wanted to make sure that I give you my thanks and a little tip to help keep the hounds at bay. Well, I think that's well, thank you again for your kind words. Thank you for the tip. I appreciate that you want to keep those hounds at bay. The problem is that, you'll be able to keep them away from you. I can't keep them away from me. They don't like me very much. They don't think much of me at all. So, whenever we have these post live stream meetings, shall we say, I use the, put quotes around the word meetings, they never go well, because they just have so little sympathy for my predicament. So they just they just wonder, well, what did you raise? And then the next question, well, why do you even bother? So it's very, very hard. But thank you for your generosity. R. Brown says, I think the polls are to feed the narrative that Kamala is competitive, so that when the steal happens, it will be credible. I agree. I absolutely agree with that. They can't have her down 3 to 4% on the eve of an election, and they win by 0.01%. Yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's the key to getting there, and I think that's what they're trying to do. If you go in on election night and it's neck and neck, then you can do the steal. If you go in on election night and say Trump is leading by 4%, and then you steal it, then it becomes very hard. It becomes unbelievable that this could have happened. But absolutely, if they go in neck and neck, then yeah, hey, look, I mean, we carried on with the the counting. Now, what they're trying to do, of course, is build up this fake momentum in order to bully voters into believing that she is the second coming, that she's actually heading towards an inevitable victory. She's this exciting phenomenon, and that if you don't vote for her, you're missing out on the party. That this is a great, wonderful, glorious candidate. It's going to be a party once she's elected, and that you're missing out. You're being churlish, mean. And I think that's why they keep putting out this stupid polls like, oh, Florida is in play. I'm absolutely ridiculous that Florida is in play. Of course, Florida is not in play. I mean, just look at Florida. I mean, you've got 1 million more registered Republicans in Florida than registered Democrats. How can anyone possibly believe that Florida is in play? I mean, it was in play in 2000. I mean, are you serious? And given that the Trump resides in Florida, given that Florida is entirely run by the Republicans, but they put this stupid thing, oh, Florida's in play. That's the kind of key story that you need to put out there, because then it causes demoralization among Republicans. Wow, Florida's in play. Things must be really bad. Maybe I should rethink what I'm doing. Maybe this is Trump is the way to go. I mean, sorry, Harris is the way to go. And then they say, hey, and then so turn Texas blue. Now, this is one of these stupid stories that we get every 2 years, every time there's an election there, every 4 years, whenever there's election, that somehow Florida is going to go blue. That, to try to persuade us that Democrats are really doing, Texas, Texas, that somehow Democrats are doing so well that, that they're now making Texas competitive. They never run stories like saying, hey, look at these formerly democratic states, and Republicans are making them competitive. That never said that. I mean, in all this time, even though Trump came quite close in Minnesota, how many stories that have been in the media run that maybe Minnesota is becoming competitive? Never. But it's always, oh, Texas, Texas is going to go blue, and of course it never happens. Ted Cruz is in trouble. He's got this. He's got a strong candidate. And so that, I think that's it. It's a way of demoralizing voters. It's particularly demoralizing Republicans, making them think either don't bother voting, or you're missing out on the party. This is a new candidate. You don't want to stick to your old ways. And Cynthia echoes what I just said. Cynthia says polls are used to influence outcomes, not measure the pulse of the electorate. That's exactly right. And this is what this guy Mark Mitchell is saying. He's saying, well, the amazing thing is there are no new polls being commissioned. All these articles based on these polls are based on polls that were conducted 2-3 weeks ago. There are no new polls. There were more polls being commissioned in March, April, and May than there are now. So they're deliberately not commissioning new polls because they don't want results that show that the Harris bounce is already running out of momentum, and that the election is kind of settling down to where it was under Biden. But so that's why they don't run any more polls, and therefore they want to persuade you that somehow Harris has broken through the wall, and this is a completely new race, a completely new dynamic, and so on. And I think that is right. There is no new dynamic. Essentially, the polls have settled down to where they were, which is a slight Trump lead, which is what it was under Biden. Under Biden, while Biden was still in the race, a slight Trump lead, and that's all there is now. But because they don't want to do that, they don't run polls. Instead, they run these fake stories about the Harris surge. That there's this excitement around the country for Harris. And even though anyone with any eyes can see, there is no excitement about Harris. There's no excitement. There's absolutely none. It's entirely cooked up in the studios of CNN and MSNBC. And then Cynthia goes on, of course, elections are merely team sports. Now, nobody knows or cares about policy initiatives from either of them outside of a couple of dog whistle topics. I absolutely agree with you. I think it's very interesting that, that we all, including the media and everything, we all pretend that we're interested in policy. We're interested in issue. I want a discussion about policy. When are we going to talk about the issues? But of course, nobody ever talks about policy. Nobody ever talks about issues. The elections are entirely settled by whether the public likes a certain candidate, or what the team around the candidate is offering or not. And the idea that it's just going to be about the issues, it's never about the issues. So essentially, this election will be: do you want Harris or do you want Trump? Is it, do you want? Is this what you want? Do you want 4 years of this Harris, who really isn't about anything other than a kind of opportunism, or do you want to go back to Trump? And I think it really is just that. There's almost never about a discussion of policy, with the exception, I think, as you point out, Cynthia, that they pick on a few essentially meaningless topics like abortion, which really isn't up to the federal government. It never really was, but at least you could make the case that, they have to nominate Supreme Court justices, and the Supreme Court justices, they might vote to get rid of Roe v. Wade, even though Republicans nominated, I don't know how many justices, not one of whom got rid of Roe v. Wade. But nonetheless, this has been an argument that's been going on for decades. So somehow the Republicans are going to put on all these conservative justices who will get rid of Roe v. Wade. It finally happened, but not until for many decades. I mean, remember all of the people that the Republicans have nominated, because you had Anthony Kennedy, and of course, what's the name of the woman, the one Reagan nominated, the first woman on the Supreme Court, and then you had David Souter, and so on. I mean, they one after another really didn't do anything, but nonetheless, it chilled the Democrats to the marrow. That somehow they're going to get the numbers on that Supreme Court to get rid of Roe v. Wade. It did finally happen, but after a number of tries. But anyway, it's not a national issue anymore. But the Democrats will want to make it a national issue because they think it's an issue that works for them. So they're going to keep talking about abortion, and the same way. Hey, let's talk about gun control. Sensible gun control, They think it works for them. That I'm not really sure of that it particularly works for them, but it might work for them in certain big cities, and then if they can get the votes in the big cities, that could just tip the battleground states in their direction. And that's why, because generally the big cities, they don't like guns. So if you can, get enough of them to the polls, it might just get you Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania into your column. But it goes back to the R. Brown's point, which is they're going to try and steal it anyway, and it's a real problem because it's likely to be a close election. I mean, it's the way America is now. America is a deeply divided country. I mean, we're not going to go back to the days of Nixon and Reagan when Republicans could get 49 states. Just that, those days are gone. So it's going to be a close race, and if it's a close race, yeah, you can absolutely steal it, and it's not going to be that difficult. When you don't have any proper security measures in place, it really isn't difficult to steal. R. Brown says it's all about the narrative, not the candidate and the election theft machinery. Yeah, that's right. Cynthia, again, thank you so much for your generosity. Appreciate it. He says, here's a rather existentialist sort of question. Ooh. I have for you this evening. Do you feel any freer to speak your own mind in Hungary than you do or did in Great Britain? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when I lived in Great Britain, it wasn't like that then. I think then it was you were free. Were you free? Well, it weren't always free. I mean, I think there was always restrictions. You always had to worry about restrictions. I think, but nothing like you have today, because what you have today is truly terrifying. I mean, now it's there was somebody I saw today in the UK who's sent to prison because he said, I think he chanted something like, F you, Allah, or something like that. And boom, he was sent to prison. Now, saying F you, Allah is obviously not a nice thing to do, and one shouldn't really do it. One should never blaspheme, and one should never insult the religious beliefs of others. But however, where do we get off sending people to prison for that? I mean, we don't have blasphemy laws, or do we? And this is where it gets very interesting, because, of course, we do have blasphemy laws, but they only apply to the gods of others. If you were to go on the street of in the UK and say, F you, Jesus, you can be absolutely certain that you will not be going to prison. So in other words, you can insult Christians as much as you like. As much as you like. And then if somebody says, well, that's not nice, that's not a nice thing to do. You say, well, we don't have blasphemy laws here. We don't, we don't criminalize blasphemy. We're now in the post-Enlightenment age. Yeah, but it applies to others. You do have blasphemy laws if you're talking about Allah. So again, we got this this situation, but the UK is quite chilling now, because it's not just on the issue of religion. It's not just about race and white and so on, but it's other things. I mean, it's they've passed this legislation, the Online Safety Act. Now, whenever anyone passes legislation like the Online Safety Act, then you know perfectly well that no one's safety is in any danger. We're only talking about the safety of the ruling circles. They are the ones who don't feel safe because there are people saying things online that they don't like. And when one person hears it online, then they think, yeah, I agree with that. And then they pass it on to someone else, and they pass that on to someone else. And pretty soon, you've got a community. You've got groups of people are getting together and say, we don't really like the government. That's kind of the way you had it, before revolutions. You have pamphlets, and how, through the pamphlets, people started communicating with one another, and like-minded people found like-minded people. And this is really the danger of the internet. This is one of the ruling circles have found the internet is precisely, what you had in pre-revolutionary times. People are forming communities and expressing views that ruling circles don't like. So this concept, two-tier Kier, this is causing real fury, because everybody knows what two-tier Kier means. Everybody knows about two-tier policing, and that means the government is going to come down on you like a ton of bricks, and they're going to send you to prison. And this is prisons in the UK are pretty nasty. I mean, their prisons are pretty nasty everywhere, to be honest. But what they're doing now is just simply absolutely throwing people. They go pick people up on the street, bring them before a judge, and then right away they're getting locked up. I mean, nothing in between. And this is what this online safety is about. It's the safety of government. Now, the media, of course, being this disgusting, slavish agents of government that they are, want to suggest, well, oh yeah, well, it's a safety. No, it's the safety of children. Yeah, that's it, the safety of children. We're worried about the safety of children. Now, nobody in Britain cares about the safety of children. I mean, I don't have to list the fact that Jimmy Savile, this disgusting, horrible, repugnant creature, was able to live for years and years as a big shot of the BBC, and running charities for young people. He had absolutely unrestricted access to teenage girls, but maybe teenagers, absolutely unrestricted, because it's a charity. Now you have this guy, this BBC guy, who's now pleaded guilty for having child porn on his hard drive. Hugh, is it not Hugh Weldon? Hugh something or other. BBC ran interference for him for many years. Now, this isn't just to be, judgmental, but the point is the idea that anyone in Britain is really worried about children is a joke. I mean, they couldn't care less about children. They're using this online safety in order to be safe from criticism, safe from people sharing ideas and opinions and starting a political movement. And I think that's how they're going to do it. And imagine you have people sharing views and saying, hey, why are we spending all this money on Ukraine? We got so many problems here to deal with. What happens when people start saying those kinds of things? Russian bots. These are Russia bots. Russia is interfering in our discussion. The Online Safety Act must go into effect to stamp out Russia bots. Well, that's it. So that argument that you make, which is an important argument, that that public money is being squandered in Ukraine, money that should be used to improve the lives of the British, that apparently is just a Russia bots. And therefore, the Online Safety Act must go into effect. So there's no question. It is terrifying. And as I said before, I'm quite wary of visiting the UK. But the one thing that if I do go to the UK, the one thing absolutely that I will do, and I advise everybody else to do, which is don't talk to the police. Any time the police are going to start asking you, what's in the bag, man? What's on your phone, or why are you here? What were you doing in Hungary? What's your view of Keir Starmer, or anything like that? Do not talk to them, because they are not your friends. I mean, so that's absolutely. So if I arrive at the airport and then they want to start engaging me in any kind of a conversation, I will not be engaging in a conversation. And unfortunately, these people in Britain who are pleading guilty, they are getting some bad advice. I don't know who represents them, if anybody represents them, but you never plead guilty without getting proper legal advice. You plead guilty and you go to sent to prison, you're done. Your life is done. Yeah, try getting a job after that. Try getting a mortgage. Try getting a loan anywhere. So you never start pleading guilty. You've got to always say, I'm going to wait for proper legal representation. But whoever is talking to these people who are pleading guilty is doing them a terrible service, destroying their lives. I'm assuming they have court-appointed attorneys, but they are bad guys, because they're giving them advice that's just ruining their lives. Anyway, DJ says, anyway, thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you. Cynthia, by the way, but just to go back, to the part that I didn't answer your question about Hungary, it's a very interesting. I mean, that Hungary is kind of charting its own course, and there is a lot more freedom here with Orban at the helm. Who knows what will happen when Orban goes? I mean, everybody goes at some point. No one is eternal. Orban, of course, is still quite young, but at some point he will go, and so you don't know who's going to replace him. Again, since I'm a pessimist, I'm assuming it's going to be somebody really dreadful, and there are plenty of dreadful people in Hungary. But your question really is interesting, because after all, I was born in Hungary, and as a small boy, I went with my parents from Hungary, communist Hungary, to Great Britain. And the idea was, here's this communism where there's no freedom, so definitely no free speech. And here we went to Great Britain, we have free elections and free speech and freedom. So that was then. That was when we left Hungary and came to the United Kingdom and thought that this is an oasis of freedom. Well, now it's completely reversed. Great Britain is the one that you're absolutely terrified of. That's why you're worrying about the knock on the door from the secret police. Here, you don't worry about the secret police. And in case of Great Britain, as we were talking the other day, it's literally, they're boasting about knocking on your door. They are sadists. They say, you take part in this, and expect a knock on the door. Expect a knock on the door. Well, what am I supposed to do? I mean, if you want to knock on my door, go ahead, knock on my door, knock yourself out. That doesn't mean anything to me. If you want to just knock on my door, yeah, expect a knock on the door. In other words, we're going to come and arrest you, and that means you're a criminal, and you're going straight to prison. But that's their mentality. You're going to get a knock on the door, and it's a straight path from a knock on the door to thrown in a jail cell. It's like you're in the Middle Ages. Like you remember Thomas More. When we watched A Man for All Seasons. Finally there was a knock on the door. They just picked him up, boom, dumped them in the Tower of London, and that was actually I'm not sure it was the Tower of London that he was. Maybe it was the Tower of London where he was in prison. And straight to the execution. But expect a knock on the door. Ooh. But yeah, so that's that was then, the contrast between Hungary and Great Britain. Now it's completely reversed, or the contrast between Great Britain and Hungary. Anyway, DJ says, I want to know where they got those people that they use for a backdrop at her rallies. I don't know. I mean, I think that all of this is so phony that I don't know. That thing that you probably saw where she was heckled by pro-Palestinians demonstrations, and she was able to cut and thrust. And she said that, if you want, Donald Trump back, and if you don't care about climate, or you don't see climate change as existential, then go right ahead and vote for Trump. In the meantime, I'm talking. Now, when she did that thing, in the meantime, I'm talking, that was obviously staged. Clearly, this whole thing was staged. There were no pro-Palestinian demonstrations. There was no heckling. It was done in order to make her sound tough. She's a strong woman. She's a strong woman. She's part of her strength. So it was a fake, phony heckling, and she was able to present herself as, tough Kamala. Now, the backdrop at her rallies are actually quite limited. I mean, they're quite small, but you can't really see it because you just see a handful of people behind her and a handful of people in front of her. And unless somebody tells you how many people showed up, it looks like, whoa, this is a huge rally. But they haven't told you that it's in the school gym, so it's quite small. And again, that's how the media are playing it. They say, oh, this was a big full house. Yeah, it was a full house. It was a school gym. How many people can you fit in the school gym? Not too many. And so that's why, oh, well, this is the backdrop of her rallies. But again, as I said earlier, will this work? I don't know. I don't know. I think somebody said earlier on, it worked for Biden in 2020. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if it works again. I'm not sure it will work again, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did. And then Samba Petrus says, and don't forget, everyone, that Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. How can anyone forget? In his first year as president, no one ever mentions this nowadays. Yeah, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. It's quite, you're right. It's very much like Kamala. It's like, because with Kamala, you say, she hasn't done anything. So there's the surge of excitement, the surge of enthusiasm for Kamala, yet she hasn't actually done anything. She hasn't delivered any major speech. She hasn't come up with any policy proposals. She hasn't articulated a program. She hasn't said, in what way she's going to be different from Biden. She hasn't said anything on the big issues. Well, what does she think of the Ukrainian invasion of Russia? What's her take on Gaza? What's her take on Israel-Iran standoff? Nothing. And yet, excitement. I mean, anybody can do that. Just simply say nothing, and then you say, excitement, enthusiasm. Now, and there is then the analogy which you just said there, which is Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009 for what exactly? Nobody was ever able to explain what it was he won the Nobel Peace Prize for. Because you can't even say, he was against the Iraq war, because he really wasn't. He was against the Iraq war as a state senator. Well, who the hell cares what a state senator in Illinois thinks about a war? I mean, it doesn't really. When he entered the U.S. Senate in 2004, he voted for all the appropriations for Iraq, for all of them. He voted for every appropriation for Iraq. And this was, of course, pointed out during the 2008 campaign by Bill Clinton. He says, we're being sold a bill of goods here. We're being told that Obama is anti-war. Well, and as Bill Clinton said, give me a break. He's not anti-war. So even on this small thing, which is the Iraq War, he didn't do anything to deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. And he kind of really interesting. I'd love to hear an explanation from anyone as to what it is that he did to deserve that Nobel Peace Prize. Because remember also, that's 2009. 2011, he launches this bombing attack on Libya. 2011, he launches a proxy war against Syria. 2013 to 14, he launches a color revolution in Ukraine that was bound to end in war. That's your Nobel laureate. And again, as I would say, is that his record is much worse than Kissinger's, because and everybody's always having a go at Kissinger because it's so easy. Everyone will take a good swipe at Kissinger. But at least Kissinger did negotiate a peace treaty with North Vietnam that extracted American forces from Vietnam. I mean, that was an accomplishment. I mean, we can talk about everything else. Well, what happened before, what happened now, but that agreement was an accomplishment. Well, that's what the Nobel Peace Prize is supposed to be about. I mean, you sign an agreement, and it brings a war to an end. Even if you had fueled the war, then you say, okay, give the man a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, when F.W. de Klerk shared a Nobel Peace Prize with Nelson Mandela, nobody said, yeah, but de Klerk had been a tool of the apartheid regime. He'd grown up in apartheid. He was steeped in apartheid. All that is true, but he nonetheless negotiated a transfer of power to the black majority in South Africa. So Obama didn't do anything. I mean, that's neither in 2009 nor any other subsequent year to say, yeah, but he did that, and therefore that merited a Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't do anything. So really one of the most vacuous figures in American politics. And of course, it's typical that Harris and all the people boosting Harris want to go back to the glorious Obama years. Anyway, Summer Petros, anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity. R. Brown says, if you had the correct views, the de-machinery could get you, George, into the White House. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I've always dreamt about selling my soul. But I've never really been able to pull it off. And so it's, I leave it to others. Others can do this job better than I could. But, in principle, yeah, I mean, selling your soul. I mean, that's been, it's been done to death ever since humanity emerged, selling your soul to the devil. So, but I don't think I'd be very good at it. In fact, I've never been that good at it. Marty, good evening. Thank you so much again for your generosity. Really, really appreciate it. Love all your posts. All this, nostalgia hours. So many of your posts are really fascinating. Going back many years and golden memories. Anyway, R. Brown says, the Kursk offensive reminds me of the Battle of the Bulge, a late and somewhat desperate operation. What do you think is the actual objective? Well, that argument that this is the Battle of the Ardennes offensive and it's the last throw of the dice, I mean, that argument has been presented, and that may be true. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but so far it hasn't happened. I mean, so far they haven't driven the Ukrainians out. So, the occupation continues. I mean, I can go through the possibilities. Maybe they want a prisoner of war exchange. I doubt whether they would have embarked on that just for a prisoner of war exchange. Maybe an exchange of territory. We give up Kursk and Belgorod, and then you have to give up parts of Donetsk. That's a possibility. But that would have they would have to get to some peace negotiations. I mean, that would be as part of any negotiations around a peace table. But we're nowhere near there. So if you take this land and say, well, we're going to hold on to it as a bargaining chip in order to get some of our territory back in Donetsk, then you say, well, good luck with that, because I don't see any peace talks on the horizon, and that means you're going to have to hold on to this territory, possibly for months and months and maybe even years. So I don't know if that's feasible. The most likely option, to be honest, is to humiliate Russia. I mean, this was not something Russia expected. This is not something anybody around the world expected, and it's still shocking. I mean, it is a quite a shocking development that Russia, of all countries, is now, part of it anyway, is under foreign occupation. It's not something one could have done, and it reinforces in the mind, and I think Ukraine always knew this. It reinforces in the mind of the West that Russia is not anyone to be afraid of. Boris Johnson said this some time ago. We don't have to worry about Russia. Putin can do his nuclear saber rattling, but Putin is not going to let off any nuclear weapons because he knows we have more nuclear weapons than he has. And that's really the mentality of the West. And what Ukraine did, and Russia's so far very tepid response, is to persuade them, yeah, we really don't need to worry too much about Russia. And that is a very chilling development, because the one thing that we remember, those of us who lived through the Cold War, was the terrifying image of the Soviet Union. I mean, the Soviet Union was something that was frightening. When you saw those Soviet generals, these bullet-headed Soviet generals marching around, these people were grim. They were very tough-looking, and you knew you don't want to mess with these people. They mean business. And so everyone remembers Hungary in '56 and the ruthlessness with which the Soviets put down the Hungarian uprising. They remembered them in '68 in Czechoslovakia and said, you don't want to mess with these people. And that was when the Soviet forces were in other countries. It was in Hungary or in Czechoslovakia. Now, NATO arms are being inside Russian territory. Inside Russian territory, they're using them. That's a shocking development. And the other aspect of it is, what impact is this going to have on Russian public opinion at home? And again, I don't know the answer, because so far Putin and the SMO are popular. People want to win this war, and so the government enjoys popularity within reason. Within reason. After all, Putin has not ordered a full mobilization, and you have to think that he hasn't ordered a full mobilization because he's not sure how the public will respond to that. And then it goes back to the point that I made before, which is that you just don't know in war, which way everything's going to go. As long as the war is in progress, anything could happen, and we just don't know when public opinion will snap and people will have had enough. I mean, remember in World War I, 1917, it looked like France was on its last legs. France was going to just collapse. Public opinion was just so sick of the war. It didn't. Russia in 1916 was doing well in the war. You know, a year later, it collapsed. Germany was doing well. I mean, Germany had, you know, triumphed on the Eastern Front. It signed the humiliating treaty with the Bolsheviks, the Brest-Litovsk, and then a few months later, Germany collapsed. So it's simply unknown how it's going to go. And as I was saying, you know, when I looked at the faces of those Russians who are being evacuated, and that looked ominous. That looked ominous. They look very, very unhappy. You know, and understandably, you know, people don't like being moved out of their homes. You know, this is where they've lived all their lives, where their parents lived, their grandparents lived, and now they're abandoning these homes. You know, so I mean, I think it's a mixture of all of those things. You know, what I don't want to say, which I think the people that I think Danaki referred to, is that this is no big deal. I think it is a big deal. That doesn't mean Ukraine will prevail. I never said Ukraine's going to prevail. I didn't say Ukraine's going to win the war or that Ukraine is going to be able to hold on to this territory. But overall, I think this operation is a big deal. Apart from anything else, the fact that they caught Russia completely, you know, with their pants down, I mean, that's also is a big deal. Danaki says, time and again, we come back to Putin's words after Beslan 2004. They thought we are weak and the weak get beaten. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of, I don't know. You know, it's a very interesting point. And I haven't really thought about this, that the West may be quite happy to see Putin survive. You know, the plans, you know, that somehow they want to overthrow Putin or assassinate Putin. I don't think that's what the West wants. I think they think Putin is someone that, you know, they can do business with. I think that if you try to get rid of Putin, you know, if you try to color revolution Putin, you might get a much more formidable leader. You might not, of course. The state could just collapse, which is, you know, you never know with any kind of a when you overthrow a leader, you could have a total collapse, but you could also have someone who is a very serious person and who wants to pursue the war, you know, very vigorously. With Putin at the helm, I think this could just go on for a long time. And that's why I think the Americans and the British have decided that, you know, we're quite well off with Putin there. Just like, you know, we're doing good with Zelensky. I think, you know, Zelensky in Kiev, Putin in Moscow. This war can go on forever. You know, we can all, you know, have a good time for the next few years while they continue killing and destroying one another. DJ says, Buddy wants a taste of that big money. Yeah, he does. His point is that it's his money, that I'm not to have any of it, because he says, yeah, it's all about me, and so, you know, you don't even get a smell of that, and I think that's his position. So, but he feels also that I'm just not doing enough to keep that pot moving. So it's doubly bad, because he thinks that I'm trying to help myself to this money, and that I'm not putting enough into it. So it makes dealing with Buddy extremely difficult. He's just not someone you can sit down and negotiate with. And that goes for his little friend Apple. Anne-Marie, thank you so much. Good evening, George and Gagglers. Really appreciate you. Always very happy to see you. We have Lens Lark says, he literally did nothing. He just got elected. This is, I guess we're back with Obama. He literally did nothing. He just got elected. There was tons of jokes about the time, and I noticed Obama didn't really lean into it. No, that's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing about Obama was that people just fell in love with the existence of Obama. It's not for anything, not his personality, not for his looks, not for anything. It was the existence of Obama. People voted for his existence. So somehow there was just something so thrilling that this person existed and that this person had been able to rise from whatever he rose to and to be president. And everything else about him, all his very strange past, nobody really wanted to know because it was just his existence, this a transcendental figure. And I think Obama himself regarded himself as a transcendental figure. And all the rest, that somehow, he's somehow an African American. He was never an African American. All of the, brought up by white mother and white grandmother, lived in Indonesia and all the rest of it. And then he kind of reinvented himself, or completely invented himself as a black American. But no one cared about that. It's just his very existence was in a way a confirmation for Americans. It made Americans love themselves. It's like I suddenly love myself because of Obama. And then you remember when Michelle said something in 2000? I think it was in 2008. Maybe it was just after Obama won that election. For the first time in my life, I'm proud to be an American. And people thought, well, that's very strange. I mean, here you are, you've done extremely well in your life, even before you became first lady, you big jobs in law firms and whatever. But now this is apparently the first time you're proud to be an American. And I think that's, but she somehow expressed the view that people had, in that loony time. I guess it'd be a question: do people really want to go back to that? Do we want to go back to that absolutely stupid time? I mean, people just became very stupid. How do you lower your IQ by 30 points all across the board? Everybody who lived in America at the time, including me, volunteered to lower their IQ by 30 points. Yeah, mate. Yeah, 30 points, 40 points. Yeah. I'm gonna say, Obama is fantastic. He's a transcendental figure. And then R. Brown says Obama's global backers gave him the Nobel Prize to solidify his Mandela-like Mandela level. No, I know. Well, that's it. The idea that he's sort of some kind of a Mandela-like figure, it's itself part of the fiction that was created around him. That somehow he's Mandela. Again, he lived in great comfort and had every kind of advantage in life. So the idea that he's some Mandela-like figure. Anyway, details are not needed when you're creating a persona for one of your tools. No, that's right. That's right. And details, and nobody really does it. And I think, this is the point that I was making earlier, and I think I just got distracted, is that after Harris is pulled over the finish line, the media will start reporting maybe a bit more truthfully about her. There'll be certain stories. Well, maybe we should have looked into this a little more carefully. Maybe we should have looked a little more carefully about her record as DA. Maybe we should have looked more carefully about her record as VP. Maybe we should have looked more carefully about a senator. Maybe we should have looked more carefully about her opportunism with Willie Brown. But by that time, it's too late. it's over and done with. It's deal done. That's how the New York Times operates, and how all the mainstream media operate. That that they don't look into things until it's already too late to have changed things. I remember they did that, with Bill Clinton. That I mean, obviously we knew quite a lot about Bill Clinton in 1992, but the media were also keeping a lot of it under wraps because they were so anxious to get Bill Clinton elected. And so, yeah, we knew about Jennifer, whatever her name was, and so on. And they kept that quiet about his extracurricular activities. But once he was elected, then you had that guy Joe Klein say, well, maybe we should have looked a little more carefully into into Bill Clinton's life. But it was too late by then. The same thing could be said about Jack Kennedy. I mean, Jack Kennedy's extracurricular activities were all known by the journalists, and they were quite reckless. He was I mean, when he was basically just being provided with women on a kind of daily, hourly basis. Some of whom were, without question, Soviet agents, East German agents. I mean, he was completely indiscriminate. And who knows, incidentally, what role any of that may have played in his assassination. No one wants to look into that. But the fact that he led a very reckless life with his, with all his women, I don't know what role it played in assassination, but it may have played a role. But again, they kept the media were in love with Jack Kennedy and kept a lot of that quiet. The media kept quiet about FDR's health. They knew perfectly well in November 1944 that there is no way in the world FDR had the health to be able to see through another term. But they kept quiet about that. They knew perfectly well that he was sick. But so it's a great thing to have a media that is so eager to serve as a kind of lackey of power, and they're going to do that with Harris. Once it's over, then we're going to start learning all kinds of things that should be reported now. But if you report it now, you might damage her election prospects. And then Lenz Lark says, Obama massively increased Bush's drone program in Pakistan. Innocent people died, including kids. Yeah. He did a lot of that. And remember, he had these kill lists that he and Brennan would have daily meetings in which they had their kill lists. Whom were they going to drone next? Again, the Nobel laureate, but they have kill lists. Remember, if you kill these people, you're killing somebody who hasn't had his day in court. These people may well be extraordinarily nasty. They may well be jihadis and terrorists and so on. But either way, they haven't had their day in court. No evidence has yet been presented against them. So when he killed Avlaki and his son, neither had his day in court. Each one of them was an American citizen. And they were basically executed without the government having to provide any evidence against them, without having to provide get a conviction in court. And that was fine. Who even ever brings up the death of the Avlaki's father and son? And again, Nobel laureate Obama. And then Lenz-Lark says, Obama also enhanced the Patriot Act. Yeah. He did all of that. all of that. But because of the mythology around him, he sort of gets the idea that he's some kind of a civil libertarian, a constitutionalist. These are all things that are completely made up. It's just absolutely made up. Always a constitutional. He really cares about civil liberties. It's like the way the media now making up the story that Harris differs from Biden on the issue of Israel and Gaza. Apparently, she is much more critical of Israel than Biden is. No evidence for this. But it's a nice idea to persuade the dim-witted Democrats who kind of care about Gaza. Hey, we're not going to get someone in the White House who really feels strongly about the Palestinians. She really takes the idea of a two-state solution seriously. She really is going to hold Netanyahu's feet to the fire. It's not going to be like Biden. No evidence for any of this. But they're putting the story out again, just like that thing I was telling you about that event the other day, which there were the pro-Palestinian hecklers, and she swatted them down. I'm talking. So yeah, just make it up. Make stuff up as you go along. Lenslark says, as a mixed race person myself, I was disgusted by the way he distanced himself from his white mother who brought him up. Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And it's very interesting that not only his white mother, because his white mother, she traveled a lot. So the people who brought him up were essentially his white grandmothers and great aunts, and essentially he was surrounded entirely by white people. It was white people who brought him up, and when the media write about Kamala, how she's very proud of her black heritage, and if she's also very proud of her Indian heritage. It's disgraceful for Trump to mention this. Is she black or Indian? No, she's biracial, and she's proud of being black. She's proud of being Indian. Okay, does that mean that Obama was proud to be white as well as proud to be black? Because that part was always lost in the equation. Did Obama ever express pride in having a white mother? I don't remember that. I mean, it was very strange that he never, and no one ever expected him. Hey, I think you should be proud of your white mother and white grandmother and all the white people who helped with your growth and education. So it's certain things you can be proud of, certain things you absolutely can never be proud of. It's like what I was saying about, you can say, F you Jesus, but don't ever say F you Allah. Then you go straight to prison. So suddenly the blasphemy laws are in operation. Anyway, Lynn says Kamala might get the Nobel Peace Prize for being the first black and a woman president. Yeah. That I think is correct, and I think November 2025 we may well be listening to Kamala's Nobel acceptance speech. Just like we heard Obama's acceptance, meaningless platitudes that he uttered when he collected his Nobel Prize. And we can expect exactly the same thing from Kamala. She's black, and she's a woman, and she's Asian. That's three for the price of one. I mean, that's a good. If only she was transgender as well, then we'd have four for the price of one. And then DJ says, you don't need to talk to anyone else after you hear what Cornel West has to say about Obama. No, that's right. And then DJ says, I hope that Maduro recognizes Juan Guaido as the president of the United States. after the the election. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, or you could just recognize anyone. I mean, say, whoever, he says, well, I think this person won the election. So, absolutely, there's absolutely no reason why you should recognize anyone else's procedure, because it's absolutely phony, and therefore, there's nothing at all credible about it. I mean, we know that the 2020 election was an absurdity. We don't know what's going to happen this November, but until you can sort out all the problems that there were in the 2020, which are still present, then I don't know why anyone should accept any election outcome. Anyway, and then Lenslark says, I never was impressed by Obama. His speeches were just platitudinal nonsense. I agree. I used to call him Flim-Flam Man. I found the frenzy over him absurd. Yep, that's true. I read Obama even said, I'm good in killing. Yeah, because Obama was very good at manipulating the media, so he liked the idea of killing, but also to present himself as a kind of Hamlet-like figure. He's wandering around the White House, reading St. Augustine. And I'm not making this up. I'm sure you can do a Google search and put in Obama, either St. Augustine or Aquinas. So he was sitting there reading about war and morality and the principle of a just war. That, and the media, oh God, finally we have a philosopher king. We have somebody who wanders around, like Hamlet, sitting there wandering around reading poetry, trying to figure out whether he should kill his father or not. And so we have Obama thinking, shall I kill Avlaki's son? What would Aquinas say? I love it. Anyway, let's see if we can. The Talk Watcher says the Harris-Waltz ticket is a potential foreign policy powerhouse. Waltz knows China, yeah. He can do the national security work vis-a-vis China. Harris's Indian ancestry shows Indian social mobility is real. That's great. Essay Dylan, George is playing on this writer's point. Equality means equality, but the reality is the extra legal hierarchy suggests a strategy of treating lower parts more carefully by race or money. Yeah. Neil Curry says, a stupefying narcissist who never took a breath without rehearsing it. That's very good. I like that. Never took a breath without rehearsing it. Let's see if there's anything else before we wrap up. Now, I should say that we've got a poll on. I selected a few films about surveillance. There are probably a lot of other surveillance films that I could have selected, but I selected 5 films about surveillance. And at the moment, The Conversation, it was a 1974 movie by Coppola, is comfortably ahead. Antonioni's Blow Up is number 2, and then there's some of the others, but they're a long way behind. So it's looking a little like The Conversation is going to collect the prize. But if you haven't had a chance to vote, please vote. Let's see if we can give The Conversation a run for its money. Anyway, the Talk Watcher says in 1991 Moscow coup, the nuclear codes were captured by the coup plotters. If Putin is ousted, the same thing could happen. If it does, expect nuclear terrorist events to take out the USA. Yeah, look, I mean, any coup is a very serious business. You never want to go down that path, particularly not with a nuclear power. but I think I mean I was thinking for some time that, oh, the Americans want to get Putin out. They hate Putin. They think Putin is just too obnoxious, too nationalistic, and just making life difficult for them. Now I think that they're comfortable with Putin. They don't want some Prigozhin-like figure coming into power. I mean, imagine Strelkov. Imagine there was a coup, and the coup leaders went to prison and brought out Strelkov and installed him in power. Now I don't know. Strelkov may be completely incompetent. He may be a fool, and I don't know. But there might be all sorts of changes if you suddenly had a Strelkov-like figure or Prigozhin or whatever. We just don't know. I think the setup at the moment is, I think, working quite nicely for the West. I don't think they need any changes. I don't think they want to engineer a coup. I think they feel that they've got Russia where they wanted to be. And if by any chance Russia does indeed make the breakthrough that all the Xenoners claim, that that they're going to make, they're going to take Pokrovsk, and then Donetsk is going to be captured. That still leaves Kherson and Zaporozhye, but finally, they're going to take Donetsk. At that moment, there's always going to be time for say, well, I think it's, let's do some negotiating. And Russia will probably say, yeah, this war's been going on for 3 years. We don't want to go on for another 3. So there's a lot of things down the road. This idea of NATO is, being defeated, and NATO's facing a disaster. Sorry, I don't see it. Again, maybe something's going to happen tomorrow, but at the moment, I don't see NATO's having any real issues. Anyway, my time is up. Thank you, everybody who has joined me. Thank you, as well, all for everybody who has contributed to the kitty. Put some money into the honeypot, and then I have to deal with those 2 wretched hounds who make life so difficult for me. But again, that's my problem. Thank you for today. Please vote in the movie poll, and we're going to do some podcasts over the weekend. And then we're going to do Peter and I will do a live stream on Monday, and then I'm going to do the solo on Tuesday. So I hope you'll join me then. Thank you for today, and good night. See you soon. All the best. Bye-bye.